Hi everyone, this is a little short video that I am making for our mini feet, tiny feet, feet. You can see large feet that I do for box stand-ups on, I believe it's the box stand-up free video that I've already done and is posted on YouTube. But I wanted to show how I do tiny feet and make sure that they're secure. Recently so there's some basic rules for stability. Number one, don't glue them onto fabric. Never, ever, 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 ever. This is going to fall off in a short amount of time and it doesn't sit nicely. When you do, it's dependent on this never getting tugged or it, any glue, not even Fabri-Tac. Don't do it. So I'm going to show you a way to do this, and you're going to say, okay, well, Kelly, this is a box. How am I supposed to make it so that you can't see? How am I supposed to attach these and not have it seen on the interior? Well, basically, it's like this. So a lot of these beads that we use have quite a large hole in them. And when we try to use these thin pins, there's a lot of play. Okay, so you put the pin in here and it's like this, and it is like, whoo, it's not, that's a whole lot of hole there. So you think, okay, well, maybe one of these little spacers will help. No, it's the same hole, size hole, so it's not going to help. So this is what I came up with. And the reason I came up with it was because of a very specific Fundascully box that was finished, Limoges box that was finished with this particular bead. Now, you can't do this on the lid bead, but you can do your feet this way. Because I refused to do a box like that. Usually when people do them, they take these pins, they stick them up through the base, right? So they're like this, okay? And then they just bend them at a 90-degree angle. Well, that leaves, even if you tape it down or glue it down or whatever, it leaves a lot of play. So let's take the play out of the equation. Let's take all of this loose holing out. One of the ways that I decided, just running away from me, is I went and got a nail kit for frames, picture frames. There are some that are nicer kits than others that give you nails that are a little better. But this is a flathead brad. One's a 1.5, one's a 1.25, a 2-inch. I guess this is the 1.5. Yes, 1.5. Whoops, flinging stuff everywhere. Okay, and then we have the standard brad, which has like no little head on it whatsoever. It's just like a little nub. And you're going to say, well, Kelly, I don't want silver. Silver isn't going to go with it. Okay, we gotta think for that too. So these are in the jewelry making section, and it is so that you can, it's just got a little flat head on it, and it is gold, as you can see. You can take metallic paint to this, dull, to your nail head, but that could potentially wear off. So we don't want to necessarily take a chance with that. Most of the time you're not even going to see it because it's on the bottom. So you can string beads onto this and twist it over to make a wire fastener. Okay, I just want to check and see if I can find out the name of what these are called, and I can't find it, of course. They also come with a little loop at the end so you can chain them together. So this will also work in a pinch. This is a blunt end, so you're going to need to do a pilot hole for sure before you start this up in. All right, so we're going to start with the brad version first, the nail. Now, this is for if you have not assembled it yet. So you are putting your little box together and you have a void on the inside. It's empty, and you're going to add this plate onto the bottom. So this is how you do it before. It's really hard to do. You can't do this version that I'm about to do after, but I'm going to show you how I would do it if I was doing it with it post put together. Try to do it before because this is really solid. This, and you can't do this to boxes like the card box I just showed you. You won't be able to do the second version where you decide afterwards you want to add something. You can, the only thing I would glue on there are those, if you wanted it raised up just a little, is like those buttons, those wood button feet that you can get. Because they don't have a very high profile, so they're not going to get knocked around or messed with potentially by little kids. And I say that because while you might not have little kids in the house, there are plenty of adults that are not very cognizant of how rough they can be when they're handling things. Okay, so this is how we do it. So you're going to, of course, I just had my ruler. What the heck did I do with it? All right. Since I'm not seeing it right away, because I'm brilliant this way. Ah, there it is. Okay. So I like my little quilting because I can just measure in like this. And for placement ease, I'm just going to put a little pin right in there, just so I know where it is. Okay. And we're going to do a 1/2 inch here. Now, I'm doing a pilot hole in these because I know that my fabric on this side, I potentially have glue here. And so let's just be smart and put it through, try to, so we get a little breakthrough. Oh, not too bad. There's not much in that spot. Okay, now you want to try when you're putting it through to have it as perpendicular as possible. Okay. And you should be able to see your little hole there. All right. So now we're going to take our little bead. Now, if you test it and your bead will not fit on this brad, then definitely switch over to one of the versions of the jewelry making because it's thinner like a pin. Or you can, if you want to still use that pearl pin, you can. But I'm showing you the brad one first. We'll do that one next. Okay, so here we have it. We're going to take it and we're just going to push that right through. Now, there's still a little play there. It's like, geez, Kelly, that doesn't look very good to me. Well, if there was already styrofoam in here, it's going to go up in and there's going to be no play. All right. We'll talk about them in a minute. Just that's the secondary one we're going to do. So now, here comes the magic moment. Ready? We are taking, yeah, any of us ladies know this is a back to an earring. You can get bags of these at any of your craft stores or online. Put it up in, okay? Now, I have to put this down to do this because I really need to put good pressure on either side of it to get this to go down, because it's not going to want to. It's a brad. It's thick. It's not the same size as an earring. So without crushing onto the brad, I'm just using this because I sort of have sausage fingers at the tip and I have enough issues with my hands. Let's use a little tool. So we're just going to push, 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 push. There. Okay. And look at that. Look at how beautiful that foot is. Flush. That sucker's not going anywhere, right? Well, what about that, Kelly? I have a box. I can't do... It's okay. We're okay. Don't worry about it. Ready? Take your cutters. I thought these were going to be the ones that were best for me, but they're not. And get it right down. Don't smash this part. I tried that. It mucked up the whole thing. You're going to go right above it, okay? Right in there. All right, and just be careful where you're aiming it because this could projectile off of it. Didn't, okay? All right, so look at that. That's not going anywhere, right? Okay, so you're saying still, Kelly, look at the, it's okay. What we do when we put it on the interior of like one of these card boxes is, with any of the open boxes, you have to put a piece of material covered mat board, foam core, whatever, down inside of this. Because you're putting it down inside of this, you don't have to worry about it because all of these feet, it's going to sit right on top of those feet because you're going to have 4 of them. But I do advise that you put as many spacers in here in between your feet so that it has support down in the middle, okay? So that if somebody pushes that base, it's not going to flex and bow. It's going to feel solid, like nothing is there. And if you can, put a little extension out a little wider on these, not necessarily just this, just to play it safe. It really shouldn't make a difference, but let's play it safe. And of course, make sure that all of them are secured down. Glue this to this, glue the next one to it because it's not quite as tall as we might like. So however many it takes to get it up that high. You can also make secondary pieces and just push it against your piece that you want to put down in there, your spacer piece, right? and just cut a little hole out of that area so that it just slides right down on it. That's another option. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you if we're using a pin. Okay. It's going to be the exact same way. Okay. I really don't advise using pins when it is something that is the second part that we talked about. I've finished my product, I can't, my piece, and I can't reach inside of there. So the play in the bead hole is what the problem is. Okay, that is essentially what it is. That's why there's no security. And a lot of times what happens is over time, your bead is going to, the styrofoam on the interior that you're pushing this up into is going to shrink away, because styrofoam, any of these plastics, styrofoams, they emit part of the gases that they're made from, and so they end up shrinking over time a little. So then, or even just the motion of touching them makes that pin on the inside move around. So either A, get a pin, a bead that has a very small hole, which is not easy to find, or find a bead that is a spacer, or like maybe a seed bead that kind of pops down inside of the giant hole. That could work too, so that it takes up that space. You could also put your pin in. Okay. And you don't have to worry about doing it right that second, but you can also try to fill the void by injecting it down in. Ooh, I can feel it gushing out the bottom, so don't do that. All right, so here's how I do that. Thinking about it a second time, because you don't want to have that. You don't, right? Nobody wants that. So what I want you to do, I'm going to use another pen. I'll use this one. Okay, I want you to put it right up against your bead and inject some in. Ooh, sugar. Wow, I was way too hard with that. Yeah. But you know the good thing about hot glue? So on the end where I put the glue in, I'm going to push it up through, right? The one good thing about hot glue, yeah, and that's not going to work either, is it? See, this is how I figure things out. I try it, I do it. No, that's not going to work either. That's 2 down. So what you would have to do ultimately, because you can't have the glue on the pin, which 90% of the time, yeah, I could just peel it off too. But I want to make this as non-tedious, as, crazy as possible. So put that in. Get some boogers off of this, man. Not quite sure why I have so much scudge on the end there. Probably the last 3 times I've done this. Squeeze some down and do it gently. Don't be like me and the squeezy McSqueezerson, who's just like, and try to get it in there so that that becomes your spacer. You'll be able to cut that excess off once the interior glue dries. So just give it a second to dry. That doesn't work, by the way. Okay, so that we just want to eliminate that void. I think the seed bead might work. So you're going to have to test some of this out on your own, obviously. All right. Okay, that's set. Didn't come out the bottom. That's good. And we just peel all this junk off, right? Yeah. Okay. Because then we can put this up into our piece and not have that play at least. All right. Because that is where the play comes from 90% of the time. But it's also what it's going up into. So please do this with styrofoam that it has a fill on the inside. Okay, if it doesn't have something secure to go up into, it's just not going to work. You also have to watch out if you try to inject glue, say the Fabri-Tac, or if you're an Eileen's fan, because certain glues, or the E6000, they can melt styrofoam because it has whatever in it. So you have to be careful what you use when you try to put glue up in a pilot hole. Okay, but I think that you'll find that that is at least a little bit better, as far as it's all about the hole in the bead not being too big for the pin, brad, whatever you're using to put up in there. But I personally really, really love, I thought I had one out, but I think I pulled one that was smaller than I wanted. Yeah. So when I'm doing the, so this longer brad, which I think is the 2-inch, okay, see the head on it? Whoop. All right. It is a tiny bit bigger, okay? Yeah. So this wouldn't work in this because it's barely going to go through this bead. In fact, I just look at how tiny that comes out. Yeah, not happening. So when you're using this and you put it up through, I know I was shocked when it fit. I was like, dang, that's a big hole in that bead. If it's a polymer bead, you can drill it out a little bit bigger if you want to, so that you can utilize this style of. So now as I am doing this this is us doing it for the styrofoam that's on the interior. Here's your piece. You've already got it made and you're pushing it in. Just did a little pilot hole there. You could inject some glue into that. They have these needle tips that you can use to inject glue in. It's usually in a bottle that you have to fill yourself. You can do that and put it down in so that there's some kind of glue so that somebody can't just come up and, all right, here's the admission. I was one of those kids that took everything apart because I wanted to know how it was put together. So I had lovely family members that made things that I wanted to see how they made it. And so I would take it out and, oh, look, I can put it right back in. Or I can put it over here and, oh, isn't that pretty? And I'll kind of redesign it myself. Frowned upon heavily by my family. But by doing this, it allows you, by being able to inject a little glue, that if somebody tugs on it, it's not going to come back out. But when you pull on this, I mean, or when you try to move it, if there is styro up in there, it's not going to move. So you could do this on your Easter eggs, things that have a rounded bottom that you can't necessarily do this on. I would do the same thing, just get that hole filled somehow with your glue, with your E6, with an epoxy putty. I mean, there's so many things that you could put to make that hole less. And I mean, it's on all of these. All of these types of beads have that larger hole. So when you try to put a pin into it, I mean, you're looking at a 1/16 of an inch. It's a big hole compared to being around this. So when you look at this, you're going, Kelly, I can't fill that with anything. I can't put hot glue in this, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. So maybe, hold on, I'll go grab one. Okay, let's take a look. So I have a couple of, I'll pull that gold one out, which is small enough to go on the pin. And I am going to put a couple of these seed beads out here. Okay, I have hair that's in my face. Pardon me, I'm not like being weird with my nose there. All right, so if we took this and we took a seed bead, okay, so the seed bead takes away the play down there. So you would put a seed bead on this end and pulling it up tight. Let me see if when I push it in, if it'll fill the gap. Now these are quite bendy, so you have to give them support as you put them in. I mean, the whole point is they do twisted. See, it's still, see how much, it's just, it's kind of a weak point. It just is, using something that is thin like this. This was a quite thick pin. I get the heavyweight pins for when I work because I really like to put some welly on them, and what ends up happening is I end up bending them all the time. So let's try and see if I use this, whoop, 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 if it helps, because it's a little more stable of wire that I'm using. Yeah, it does. It does, but that's with 2 seed beads on there. I would do this because that one seed bead looks a little odd at the bottom. So this is where, again, it's all about hiding our mechanics, right? Yes, we hide what we do. Nope, not that way. Got to do the silver one, the seed bead, pick maybe a silver seed bead, okay, or gold to go up in that. See if it's going to sit up in there. Yeah, look at that. It's seated right up in there. So, you know, you're going to use a pearly, pretty at the bottom, right? Now we're going to, oop, boop, boop, boop. Oh my goodness. This little roly-poly bead does not want to participate after all. And then oh dear, my extra hand there. I would maybe take another spacer just in case so it would hide this top guy. Let's see if I shove it on there, fit. Nope. Doesn't want to go down on that one. Let's see if you can see it when we put it in. And really that top one is, yeah, that'd be pretty solid. So it was, try to find a spacer that'll pop up inside of this, try to find a seed bead that will pop up inside of this spacer. Okay, so it'll hide it. So you have a pearlized there, and then you put this, then you put the silver spacer on, then you put the seed bead that rams down into it, then you put this bead, and then you have a little spacer bead there to fill the gap that pushes down into that hole a little bit, just enough. Doesn't have to go inside. You don't want it inside. And that'll make for a nice tight fit if this is in styro. Okay? It's all about, like I said, filling the void of the large hole on the pretty bead. And with a few little tricks, you can make it so you have really stable feet. Put a pilot hole in of the same size, pin potentially, and just kind of inject a little glue into it so that maybe it's a little more, not going to pull back out. But at least this way, it's really not going to move once you get it rammed, pushed up in there and did your solid. You could potentially put just a tiny bit of glue on that top seed bead, maybe, to help it stay up against the fabric to resist pulling back out. But, you know, doing it after the project is a lot more difficult than planning ahead for it. So definitely, if you're doing an egg or you're doing one of the shaped boxed, this is, you're going to have to put it in afterwards because you don't necessarily have a base. All right, so this is how I do tiny feet. Good luck. Message me if you need any help. Bye.